Welcome to Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat, a podcast for all you wine lovers who, if you're like me, just cannot get enough of the good stuff. I'm Janina, your host, brand ambassador, wine educator, and sommelier. So stick with me as we dive deeper into this ever-evolving, wonderful world of wine. And wherever you are listening to this, cheers to you.
Hello, wine friends, and welcome back to another episode where today we are looking at one of Italy's most overlooked wine regions. We are heading to Umbria, the green heart of Italy. This is a region that borders Tuscany and is just above Rome. And we are diving deep into Orvieto DOC. This is a white wine appellation that has an incredibly long history, a unique identity, certainly helped by its soils, and wines that are far more complex, textural, and age-worthy than most people realise. In this episode, you are going to discover your next white wine to try, but also your next wine trip. So you're going to learn about some brand new grape varieties and how those special soils and climate create wines with real minerality and depth. You're going to learn how this region fits into the wider Umbrian wine landscape, from powerful tannic reds like Sagrantino to more elegant high-altitude Sangiovese blends, and why Umbria deserves a place on your travel list alongside Tuscany. But my guest is also a WSET certified educator, so I can't have her on without asking some tips and tricks to help you with your tasting skills. So may I introduce Luisa Salussolia, a wine educator, WSET diploma holder, and founder of Unicorn and the Vine. She's also one of the ambassadors for Orvieto DOC, having spent some time in the region. So who better to listen to than Luisa? And make sure you stay to the end. Regenerative viticulture is certainly a very hot topic in the wine world, and Luisa did a dissertation on the subject, so I'll be picking her brain on her findings and if a producer could make one change in the vineyard to make an immediate difference, what would it be? So pour yourself something delicious, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Luisa, you're in the wine chair. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, well, I have to start with the first question, which is, you spent a full week immersed in Orvieto as an ambassador. Okay, so before we dive into the wines, can you tell me about, I guess, this region and I suppose when was the moment that you realised that this region is far more interesting than people think?
Absolutely. So I spent an immersive week in Orvieto, and what was so fascinating is its traditions and its history. So it dates back to the Etruscan times. So it's this sort of medieval village on this tuffo, which is this volcanic rock, this compressed volcanic ash. And people relate it to like an Emmental cheese, because there's all these deep caves where the Etruscans used to make wine and these perfect conditions. So I think for me, just the history and the tradition of this area, the indigenous grapes that they're using, and key, these limited 25 to 30 estate producers that are producing terroir-driven gastronomic wines, completely different to the bulk production of Orvieto DOC. And those three combinations just maybe we need to talk about this region. It is fascinating.
I love it, because not only have I not spoken about Orvieto yet on this podcast, today is the day, but we are in Umbria, and Umbria is just an area that seems to be so overlooked by Tuscany, isn't it? How would you describe the landscape? Set the scene for us so we can all start planning our next trip.
I am delighted to set the scene. So Umbria, I really am. So Umbria is the heart of Italy, the green heart of Italy. That's what they call it. It's the only landlocked region in Italy. So we've got the Apennines either side, and it has a population of 800,000 people versus 3.7 million in Tuscany. So it is greener, it's cleaner, it's full of nature, rolling hills. And one of the key things as well, and if you speak to sort of, I spoke to some of the team members at Lucarotti and lots of people that live and breathe Umbria, they tell you it's Tuscany 50 years ago. So it's less touristy and it's uncommercial and it's a land of traditions, an unsung gem.
You know, it seems from everything when I read about this region, it's slower. You can really switch off and you're getting some similarities to Tuscany, but apparently 25% cheaper, if you're going out to restaurants, because it's just not, you don't have the same amount of tourists or footfall. So it sounds quite magical. And with
exactly
this undulating landscape. Fun fact for you, do you know this? Did you know that the Chronicles of Narnia came from the town Narni?
I did not.
Right. So, okay, before everyone gets excited, this is one of the medieval towns in Umbria, which doesn't look anything like the Chronicles of Narnia. But apparently, C.S. Lewis, he was looking on an old atlas, and Narni, the town of Narni, was called Narnia in Latin. And he just really liked the name. And that's where he took inspiration from it. So the name comes simply from him seeing this old atlas.
Fabulous.
A fun fact that has nothing to do with wine, but I think that we should all go to this region. And okay, we have to set the scene a little bit more. So we've talked about the undulating landscape, the woodlands, the fields, the vines, the olive groves, the hilltop towns, stunning. Okay, but we haven't just got Orvieto. So this is going to be a white wine episode. There are some other great areas, actually 2 DOCGs to talk about. I think we have to start on and just give a little feature to Montefalco Sagrantino. No, I mean,
absolutely.
It's actually, this is our medicine. Should we not be drinking more of this?
I agree. It's so complex, structured, age-worthy, and very difficult to grow, a labor of love, and hugely, the time they have to keep it before release as well. Again, it's fabulous. It's a really wonderful wine.
I have to say, for anybody, apparently there are studies, and I always talk about this. We often say like Tannat is a great variety that has a lot of high tannins, so therefore the polyphenols, the antioxidants, good old resveratrol, our best friend. But apparently Sagrantino has the highest amounts, and the tannic structure is the most similar to like pure cacao. So loads of health benefits. We really need to put this grape variety on our list.
Great for the microbiome. We need it.
By the way, everybody, so I was introduced, can you imagine? I was introduced, I had this whirlwind relationship with a gentleman, an Italian gentleman, there we go, backstory, that was 5 years younger than me, but he was 6'3". So, I got swept up in it. And he was from Perugia. So his favourite wine was Sagrantino. And at the time, so this is going back like 10 years, I was like, what's Sagrantino? I haven't actually tasted this. And so I went in search of finding the best Sagrantino so he would drink it. And so that's where I learned all about Arnaldo Caprai. So if anybody wants this is the producer that put this wine region on the map, because before that, they were generally making sweet wines from Sagrantino, not dry. So if anybody's interested, note down that producer, because Sagrantino is a fantastic dark.
If you like your tannic, full-bodied, structured, complex reds, you must get involved.
Totally. But what seems to be super overlooked is Trebbiano Rosso Riserva DOCG. This is actually, it's a great Sangiovese wine that I think just people go, what? And that's probably, would you say that's probably the only other one that probably should be mentioned at least for Umbria? I know there's lots of different wine regions, but
I agree. Yeah, for the reds, absolutely.
So yeah, and if anybody is interested, actually, there's some pretty strict aging requirements, very similar to like Chianti Classico Gran Selezione, which is the highest level of Chianti. And so, and of course, it's not 100% Sangiovese, so there can be other great varieties in the blend, and that will always make a difference. But it's like the same with Chianti. So I don't know, it's just for anybody, put that on your list if you like Chianti wines, if you like Vino Nobile, the Montepulciano. We were talking about Sangiovese only a few episodes ago, actually focused on Brunello, the Montalcino. So go back to that if you missed it. Here is another Sangiovese blend wine to speak about. But shall we go to Orvieto?
Let's go to something very different. Yes, let's move to the white wine world of Orvieto DOC.
Well, so now you already talked about this is a wine region that has history going back. I think it was like the center of winemaking 2,500 years ago. Did you go in any of the Etruscan caves and cellars when you were there?
We absolutely did. And one of the wines I brought along for you today, actually, the Etruscans made wine under the winery in the cellar, and he actually still ferments and ages. This is the Lunato, this is the Velette winery, actually ages and does his wines there in the cellars that date back to 3,000 years ago. So it is amazing. His history is phenomenal.
And they're naturally really cool, aren't they? This is, before modern technology, incredible, the temperature control and how cool they are down there.
It really is. It's perfect. And they get these little mold, perfect temperatures, and just ideal for these, these textural, elegant yet complex white wines to just...
Ooh. Well, I'm excited about tasting this Lunato in a moment, but we need to set the scene more. I mean, okay, what does being an ambassador for Orvieto actually involve? How did you become one? How does one become an ambassador of Orvieto?
Yeah, so they were looking, what they really want to do in Orvieto is they want to get the message out that the terroir there is incredibly unique. You've got volcanic soils, marine sediment, clay, and these are really the estate produced wines. There's only about 25 or 30 of these estate winemakers doing phenomenal terroir-driven gastronomic wine. So they wanted to invite educators and people in the wine industry to come and really experience that. And I was lucky enough, it was actually Elizabeth and Wine, who was a friend of mine, who put me forward to the consortio, and they said, yes, come along. And you had this week's immersive experience going around all these estates, really tasting and understanding the terroir and the history and what great Orvieto wine is and the indigenous varietals that go into it that I will explain. So it was incredible. And at the end of the week, you had to sort of become an official ambassador of the region. You had to present over a dinner in a cave, typically, naturally, to the 25, 30 estate producers, what you're taking away, what you don't, why Orvieto needs to be celebrated and why it doesn't get the recognition it so deserves.
Okay, well, you've just led into the next question. Tell me what's special about this region, the grape varieties, the wine. Why do we need to be tasting this? What was your takeaway from that week-long trip?
Sure. So I just want to set the story here. So in the Middle Ages, the white wine of Orvieto was considered from the Middle Ages the best white wine in the whole of Italy and has always had this great reputation. And unfortunately, in the 1950s, the Tuscans had all this Chianti and this red to sell, but they didn't have the white. So what they did is they went over the border, got a lot of bulk production of Orvieto and started exporting it everywhere. So the Orvieto that some of the listeners might be thinking about might be that sort of very simple, easy drinking white wine. That is not what I'm talking about today. What's special about the wines I'm talking about today is this is sort of from the 1960s onwards where the producers came in, saw this phenomenal terroir that has made up of three elements. You've got this volcanic soil from the volcanoes of Lazio. You've got this marine sedimentary soil of clay and sand. And then you've got this sort of alluvial soil. And these soils give amazing complexities to the wine, great minerality, salinity, which makes them so gastronomic. They're also, to make Orvieto DOC, you have to follow the rules. And the rules state you must use 60% of Grechetto di Orvieto, which is an indigenous varietal to Orvieto. It understands the terroir. It's quite neutral, so it really lets the land shine and where you are shine. And also Procanico, which is a clone of Trebbiano Toscano, but this is a really old clone that really does great things on this terroir. And the other grape varieties I can talk about later, but the main ones are Grechetto and Procanico, 60% in the blend, terroir driven. And that's what makes these wines special, is because the Grechetto as well is slightly textural. So these wines, and again, the salinity as well that we have from the soils. So I'll explain more when we taste, but these are the key points of why these wines are so special.
Okay. Well, actually, do we want to taste one? Because, I mean, what should we be tasting first? Because we've got, for everybody, okay, we've got two wines. They are both Classico Superiore.
Yes.
So actually, maybe we should touch on, you were saying about the better quality Orvieto, but Classico Superiore, what does that mean? What is that actually saying to somebody who's buying the bottle?
Okay, so Classico Superiore is linked to quality, and it means that the wine has to have lower yield, slightly higher alcohol, and it has to be aged. It can't be released till the 1st of March after on release. So it has to wait 5 months before release. So that's really all that means. And the Classico actually doesn't mean anything to do with quality. Classico is just the historic area. And in fact, there are really wonderful estate producers here in Orvieto, like Motura, that are producing amazing wines, but they don't have the Classico because they're not in the historic region. But the Superiore, yes, that's quality.
Okay. Well, we have two producers, don't we? We have Decugnano del Barbi, which, by the way, everybody, look up this place. Oh my God, they do weddings. You can hire the Airbnb. It looks unbelievable. I mean, I always look up the wineries beforehand and I'm like, please, Decugnano del Barbi, if you're listening, please, can I come and stay? It looks absolutely magical.
It is magical, and I have been there. And again, like in a lot of Orvieto, because it sits on this tufo, this compressed volcanic ash, underneath the winery and these hills are sort of tombs, Etruscan tombs, where jewels were kept and the Romans came into, etc., underneath his land there. So the history is phenomenal, and he's still this winemaker riddles, because again, this is something about Orvieto, is all these artisanal practices they have, and this winemaker was famous for riddling sparkling wine over there in these caves, and aging them 4 years on the lees. And that's not Orvieto DOC, but again, it's all this artisanal tradition that they keep, that is happening there in Orvieto, and these guys are doing in Enzo Barbi.
So should we be trying this one first, do you think? Or do we try the Lunato from Tenuta Le Velette?
We can start with this because we can start.
Because it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter, as we're on the topic.
Yeah, exactly. Well, whilst we're pouring this, okay, I wonder whether they actually explained a little bit to you, a little bit more about Grechetto, the grape variety, you know, one of the main ones and native to this area. But there are actually different clones, or when we say clones, actually should even be considered different grape varieties, apparently. You have Grechetto de Todi, and Todi being a region in Umbria, or also known as, my God, they all have so many different names, also known as G5. That doesn't sound very romantic, does it? But also Grechetto Gentile. So that one's like a slightly more aromatic one, apparently. Whereas the Orvieto clone, or the Orvieto grape variety, the G109, so romantic, is native to the area, less aromatic, but really works well with the soils. Did they talk about these different clones or different varieties of Grechetto?
Absolutely. So Grechetto di Orvieto, this is the one they're most proud of. This is the one that understands this unique terroir. In Decugnano de Barbi, we're in a soil that's this marine sediment. So there's the Grechetto really thrives here, and I'll explain why. But just back to this grape. This particular indigenous varietal has slightly oily texture. It's quite textural, which gives body to the wine, and it gives us wonderful aromas of stone fruit as well. And the land here, and this is why this wine is called Mare Antico, which means ancient sea. This land only 3 million years ago was underwater. So many, many years ago, when the peninsula came up through the ocean, the water was trapped, the sea was trapped here. And that's why when you walk around these vineyards, you can pick up oyster shells and seashells. And not only is that a lovely thing to do, but it gives this wonderful salinity and minerality to this wine that makes them really a joy to drink and very gastronomic as well.
I love this wine. Whilst you were talking,
It's great, isn't it?
I had a sip. So, by the way, for everyone, so it's called Mare Antico, and that means ancient sea. So you've already kind of
Yes.
explained it. And the label for everybody, half of the label is very black, and the black part is apparently to show the mysterious nature of the sea, which I love. A little bit of mysticism in wine, yes, please. I don't mind
We
a little
like
bit of
that.
that.
We
Yes,
like that.
yes, we do. Okay, I am going to talk about tasting this wine in a second, but I keep on thinking we haven't done the grapes. Grechetto, we've talked about that,
Yes.
but the other grape variety.
Yes. And just quickly on Grechetto, you have, just as you said, the Grechetto di Todi, which they use for the sweet wines, because Orvieto DOC also encompasses botrytis, noble rot, one of the few wine regions in the world that is making outstanding, lusciously sweet wines. So they use that clone for the botrytis Orvieto DOC. But this one, the Grechetto di Orvieto, is for the still wines, and the other grape is the Procanico. And again, this is another biotype. It's a clone of Trebbiano Toscano, but they really like to call it Procanico because they really feel, just as you said, this is a grape variety in its own right. It understands this land. It's like both the grapes, it's quite neutral, so it lets the terroir shine and it gives you a sense of place as well. And the great thing about the Procanico is that it really holds on to the acidity and gives that refreshing, mouth-watering vibrancy that we get with this wine.
It's funny, for everyone listening, Trebbiano.
Yeah, I know. I hate
is-
saying it.
Trebbiano is such a confusing grape because it's not a grape. And it's also, well, it is, but it's the Trebbiano family isn't even a Trebbiano family. It's just a group of grapes. And in Italy, it's almost like in the past, I don't know, it was obviously, there is actually some history, everybody. Sorry, there is. You can Google this. I just don't know off the top of my head. But there's so many different Trebbianos and they are not related to each other. So like Trebbiano di Lugana, which I did a podcast, I'll link it in the show notes somewhere. That's known as Trebbiano. And that's a very different grape variety to Trebbiano Toscano, but I love the fact that they are calling it Procanico, which obviously, again, that because of everybody, when a grape variety grows in a different soil or a different climate, it still shows something different, even if it is a more bland, neutral grape variety, right?
Exactly.
Oh. So this wine, I looked up the tasting notes and 5% of it is actually fermented in French oak. So they're taking a bit more seriously and it goes through full malolactic fermentation. So, converting that more sharp malic acid into a creamier acid. And I really pick that up. There's this butter nature to the palate, but much more textural, not in this like over the top way. It's almost like, again, with like molten sea salt on it.
Yeah, that they say, and the winemaker Enzo Barbi will tell you this himself. He really feels, because of the soil here and that marine influence, the marine sediment, that it's like an ocean salinity. He said it's different to the salinity that we'll try in the next wine, which is very typical of Orvieto. There's this ocean salinity, and again that texture that you're getting is from the Grechetto, because it is this sort of textural grape. 55% of this wine is made up of Grechetto, so you've got that lovely texture coming through. And then this winemaker's decided, because Orvieto, there is quite a bit of freedom with that other 40% to use international varieties, so there's a bit of Vermentino and Chardonnay in there as well.
I love the fact that this borders on, it's got like a slight floral note. So I don't know, I'm picking up, I'd love to see, you tell me what you pick up. And then together, everyone can then decide if they like it, because we're all both going to pick up different things. But there's almost like this slight jasmine note and then like apple blossom.
You've hit the nail on the head. And I'm so glad you touched on the floral, because you're right, it's a sort of white flower chamomile. Again, this is a real typicity of Orvieto. So even though winemakers have a bit of freedom, that 40% freedom outside of the Grechetto and Procanico, with all the Orvieto wines, you get this minerality, this salinity, and this really sort of delicate, you can get this more, the stone fruit as well, pear in this instance, but you can get a bit of apricot.
I'm to be honest, I was actually, I was going to say peach, but whatevs. So
Yeah.
but like a peach pear.
Yeah. And the pear for sure for the soil, because that's this sort of sandy clay soil. We're getting more of the pear, whereas when we get onto the volcanic soils here, which we'll taste next, we get more of the stone fruit.
And what I love about you're saying about like Grechetto often gives this texture. This is silky. This has like this silky mouthfeel because it has some weight, but not weight as in chunky. It's not this full-bodied wine. The only way, and it's not quite. It is going into oily texture, but when I think of oily, I often think about something like what Albarino can give, and I feel like this is silkier. It's the only way I can describe it. Oh.
I think it's a great description, and I think that sort of sums up what Orvieto can do. It's sort of delicate, like you've got the floral nuances, but then you've got that complexity, the salinity, the minerality, the pear, the apple, the lemon, the vibrancy. There's a lot going on, but it's not. It's like you say, it's silky. It's not too overpowering. But again, with food, fantastic, and because you've got that really high acidity, that mouth-watering acidity coming through as well.
Mm. Did you have any local dishes that paired really well, or just in general?
Yes.
Did you get?
Absolutely. And one thing I love about Orvieto is it is the land of the black truffle. So we've got Piemonte for the white truffle, and everywhere you go in Orvieto are these black truffles, and and what's one of my favorite dishes in the world is just pasta and truffle. And this with that dish is absolutely to die for. And it has a slightly almond finish as well, which is really Moorish and goes really, really well. But they have a lot of wild boar there. They eat pigeon, which is a speciality from Etruscan times, which also used to roost in all the caves there. It used to be a source of food. They were protecting themselves in the fort from attack. They would attract the pigeons for their food, and it still goes on today. You see pigeon on most of the restaurants. Again, this is a land of tradition. But this wine with truffles, a truffle pasta for me is perfection.
I'm so glad you mentioned the truffles, because this is something like I'm always building up my agenda of what I'm going to do when I go to these regions. And on that note, I want to go truffle hunting. And apparently you've got nearby the forested Valeriana Valley that's incredible for these truffles. And I don't know if you even know, because you would have been driven around, but I've written it down on my notes. There is the Valerian Road, and it's supposed to be so almost like hauntingly beautiful. It goes through all these tiny roads and through dark forests. And I'm like, oh, yes, in this place that is slower, that is just countryside with, countryside inns. And this winery that we're talking about, so Decugnano del Barbi, like many of these more rural, rustic wineries, boutique stays, they do cooking classes, don't they?
They do, absolutely. Yeah, and he does rent his, there's like an area you can rent a villa there, you can do cooking courses and the work. So yeah, it's great.
Oh, and get married.
Well, I forgot that bit.
I'm just always obsessed with which wineries you can get married at. One day I might get married on one. So let's go to the other winery, the Lunata, which, by the way, I love both of these wines. This says something to me. I know everyone, by the way, some of you are going to be like, oh, it's a marketing spin, la, la, la. Yeah, I get it. But Mare Antico, so the ancient sea, it's all about the mysticism there. But this wine from Tenuta Le Velette is called Lunato because of the reflection of the moon and how it integrates into the wine and its flavors. I mean, come on, I am sold. I'm all for it.
Well, I'm so glad, and I'm glad you're sitting this evening, because I had to show this wine. I've met Corrado, the winemaker. We spent time on his land, and I had to show Velette because this is a historic family estate. It goes back to 200 years, as I touched on earlier. The Etruscans were making wine in the caves underneath in this winery. So the history there is phenomenal. And Corrado will take you down into the caves where he's cellaring and storing his wines. It is another world. It's like stepping back in time to 800 BC, where the Etruscans were there. By the way, Etruscans were unlike Greek culture or Roman culture. They were really for the woman. It was far more equal, which is very important. And you find that sort of pride. And again, so this tradition that's brought forward in Orvieto from the women that taught there, this, they were allowed to eat with the men, to keep their own names, to wear what they like. There was a lot more freedom and equality with the Etruscan culture, which I just have to throw in. But
Thank
this
you.
winery,
Yep, approved.
But I'll let it go. I'll move on quickly back to the wine. And so This is amazing. And this part, so we're moving away from the sort of marine sedimentary soil, and we're now on volcanic soil. And all the volcanic soil from the volcanoes of Lazio, we find here in the southern part of Orvieto. And that gives this wine a lot more mineral effects. We get a lot more saltiness, that salinity as well, a lot more earthiness in the wine. If you go back and smell the first one, there's a lot of that vibrant fruit, but here we're getting a lot more mineral earthiness. And this is an everyday Orvieto. This is €12, which again, it just for value and quality, I think it's important to highlight. And it's it's very elegant, but it has that little bit of complexity, no oak whatsoever. It's Grechetto Procanico, but this winemaker, Corrado, is using here Malvasia and Verdelho as the other grapes as well. So Italian grapes just to make up the blend. But despite that, you're still getting that Orvieto typicity of mineral, salinity, textural, lime, stone fruit coming through. So hopefully that brings that to life.
I find, they're so interesting texturally, salinity across both. But actually, this one is far more savoury. And I also get a lot more of this, even like a slight white pepper, slight smoky incense sticks edge, whereas the other one was really pretty powdery floral in that nature. So it's really interesting texturally and mineral-wise and freshness-wise, very similar. But actually, the components and styles are slightly different, yeah. Or flavour-wise.
And that's the sand and clay, where you're getting more of that chamomile and the floral, whereas here you're getting more stone fruit from the volcanic soils. And that, as you say, that smoke is that flintiness to this. I think it's really got that sort of, I can see it,
flint is, when I'm like smoky incense stick, actually flint, that's perfect. That'll do. I'll take that.
That'll do, yeah.
Oh, by the way, I looked and the first one, Mare Antico, is available in the UK.
It's a little bit more expensive over here, guys. It's €19 over there. But you can probably find it for £22, which I still think is amazing value for the quality.
Well, I know that Call on Me had it in the UK. So I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to grab a bottle. And also I'll see if I can find any others and link in, actually, just because it's so, this is so
a great
fun.
Wine.
This is so fun. But I want to put these in a category like, if you were, maybe like the first one is more of like a grosses Gewächs Riesling. So the dry, high, top quality wines from Germany. So it's because it's got this like aromatic, it's more mineral, but I'm just talking about that kind of the weight, the quality, the aromatics. I don't know. The second one, I don't know, but it's still, where would I place it? The point is, top quality Riesling, top quality Chablis. I don't know, like there's
Chablis,
maybe the Chablis on the second one. But, you are not going to find, I think, actually the quality in these two glasses. I can't talk for everything. In Italy, let's go in Italy, at the kind of €15, €18 mark, probably for Chablis and Riesling, it would be just that little bit more expensive. I think you would be, quality-wise, you'd probably be looking at €20 to €25 in France and in Germany for the same comparison. I don't know what you think there.
Exactly that. And that's another beauty of Umbria and Orvieto, is you've got this quality, these unsung heroes, these fabulous quality wines, and they're just such good value for money. And honestly, from all the estate wineries, when the state producers that are producing these wines, these gastronomic tower-driven wines, there was not a bad egg. I was really difficult to choose. I wanted to showcase two different terroirs, two important terroirs of the region, but for the estate-produced wine, the quality is really fantastic. And I urge people to go and visit. And the experience that you get, because we're in Orvieto and Umbria, it's not commercial. The winemakers, they invite you into their home. They don't bring out a little cuisine. They bring platters of, crudo and meats and cheeses, and they just want to show you and make you live and breathe it and showcase the traditions that they kept onto, but also the innovation that they're bringing as well. This fearless innovation that is really exciting. And it's just getting that message out there that, the good stuff is really worth noting. And please just don't confuse it with the simple Orvieto DOC. The estate bottle producers are doing something very different. And this unique terroir, and so unique, may I add, that Antinori are there now. You've got Castello della Sala. They want a piece of the pie. They've come in. They understand that these soils are unique. These indigenous varietals give this expression that we get these textural, elegant yet complex wines. So that just says everything that they've crept in as well and want to get
I'm
involved.
glad you mentioned that because actually, when I was a sommelier, I used to sell their Civaro della Sala, which is, as far as I remember, mainly Chardonnay, but with Grechetto. That's my memory of it. Anyway, my God, and of course it's barrel aged and it's rich, and it is 100% one of the best Chardonnays or Chardonnay blends in Italy, isn't it?
It is. It is. And, when I showcase that one, if you taste it, they're like, oh, this is amazing. But I swear the secret to that wine is that Grechetto from these soils. And, they've worked it out. There's wonder to be had.
There you go. Proof, everyone. Proof. In terms of coming to the Orvieto region, you've mentioned about, say, 25 estate wineries to visit. I mean, first of all, do you have any advice on how to differentiate, a good estate from some of the others, or who to go and visit and how long it takes to get between them all? Like, what are your thoughts on that for giving people advice for coming?
I think go. First of all, if you love wine, if you love uncommerciality, if you love tradition and culture, and you love value for money and quality, you have to go. And Orvieto is an hour and a half from Rome. It's on the Autostrada in between Florence and Rome, so you're just very easy to access, and all the wineries are pretty close. You can tour around, and for the estates you've got Lampone, Agile, you've got Barbarani. I could go on and on. I can give you a list. They're all fantastic, and they're easy to get around. And the other thing I say when you go as well is just to also think about the variety that you get, because Orvieto DOC is all about white wine, but still all the way through to lusciously sweet. We've got a continental climate here. We're landlocked, but we've got those lovely cool evenings, which retains this freshness. And we've also got lots of water. We've got a couple of lakes. We've got the river that runs through. So we get the botrytis. We get incredibly sweet Orvieto DOC noble rot wines, but we also got late harvest wines as well. So there's a real variety to be explored, and I just can't recommend it as a wine region to visit.
I feel the passion. You've done a great job. And I mean, sorry, everyone listening, you're not tasting these wines, but no, they are actually, I don't remember the last time I've tried an Orvieto, honestly, because unfortunately, we've got how many wines in the world to taste. And so it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have two very, very good examples here. So everybody go and check it out. And also, my God, I want to go down into some cellars that were built 3,000 years ago. Also, I think Tenuta Le Velette, they have their own, there's a church on the estate, isn't there?
There is. Well, and actually also in Decugnano de Barbi as well, they've got, from medieval times, they were making wines there. So again, it's this history that is mind-blowing. And I said it once and I'll say it again. These traditions, so, they're riddling the most amazing sparkling wine. You can't get it anywhere but there. But you go there, and when you're tasting the Orvieto DOC, they'll whip out their sparkling wines that are, 4 years aged on the lees. Delicious Chardonnay blends. And again, just these, all riddled by hand, keeping those traditions and that authenticity, which is just such a joy to experience.
There we go, everyone. I'm going to put more information in the show notes because I think we all should discover more regions like this. And I just want to go somewhere that's slower paced and great value and stunningly, magically beautiful. So let's touch. I think we've given everyone a nice little taste of Orvieto DOC. I just want to, let's talk about you for a second, because that's not fair to have you come on this podcast without talking about what you do. You are an educator within the Winosphere Education Trust. And what I found fascinating, so I'm going to quiz you on this just because I love the subject, whether you like it or not. For your diploma dissertation, you chose, I think that maybe there was only 2 subjects, but you chose regenerative viticulture. So can I just ask you your personal opinion from researching this? How does regenerative viticulture, in your mind, go beyond organic or biodynamic farming?
It's a topic I'm really passionate about.
Likewise.
As well. So when it came up as one of the two, I just thought, hallelujah, because I just had to try and stop myself and write the bloody thing, because it was just, I could have researched, I could still be looking into it. It's amazing. But regenerative, how does it go above and beyond? Well, it's still similar, but it goes above and beyond. It's all about taking care of the soil and letting the winemaker do less and nature do more for the longevity of the vineyard, to give robust vines, and to really help with this huge issue we've got of climate change. And I think my biggest takeaway was that's slightly different to organics and biodynamics, where there's this rule book. It says, if you're doing organics or you're doing biodynamics, this is how you do it, this is what you should do, and blah, 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 blah. In regenerative, that rule book doesn't exist. It's like, look at your land, look at your terroir, look at your climate. What do you need to thrive? And that's a difference. So, for example, with organic biodynamics, you need to use copper in certain instances and things like that, which isn't always a good thing. So there's that. And I think another difference with regenerative is they're all about sort of minimal tilling or no tilling, which is quite unique to regenerative. And that's really to protect this organic matter in the soil. And that's so important because this organic matter, when a plant dies, it creates this organic matter in the soil that absorbs carbon, which is great for the environment. Also, this organic matter absorbs water, increases the water holding capacity. So in a day and age where water will be a scarce commodity, this is so important for our future. And also it attracts biodiversity, wonderful insects and things like that. And also supports the network of fungi in the soil and all that sort of stuff. So the tilling element was really eye-opening and fascinating to me. That sort of no-till ethos. And, and also the other thing I love about regenerative is if you certify regenerative, they're really high on social impact. So, for example, Anne Bousquet at Domaine Bousquet, she now employs 70% of her workforce is from the local area in Argentina, which is very, very rare in Argentina. And that's all because she's regeneratively certified. So that's been an outcome of that. So there's lots of elements to it, but I think, it gives that freedom as well. And it's,
Interesting. So that was actually going to be my other question from all of the research you did. Cover crops are, of course, incredibly important for increasing microbial life and soil structure and, boosting water retention, reducing erosion. And you've obviously got grazing animals that obviously are going to give their own little bit of nature back to the soil. But the fact that you've mentioned tilling, do you think that if a winery could focus on just one thing for the biggest impact, would you go with no tilling?
Well, I certainly think in warmer climates, yes, with this issue we've got with water, the fact that, the studies and the research that I did said that if you just let this organic matter, don't disturb it, don't till it, let it thrive in the soil, you will be able to retain more water in your soil. I think that is that is very important in today's age. And, 10, 15 years time, we're really going to have a problem with water. So that was a big takeaway for me.
Interesting. Now, as a WSET educator, I want to ask you, is there a tasting tip that you teach students that maybe a wine lover might not realize or just doesn't practice enough? Is there something that you try and tell your students?
My level 3 class at the moment, I'm trying to just tell my students to enjoy it in the exam and just go relax. We all know the SAT, you've got that process. Don't overthink is my number one tip. Close your eyes, deep breath, and enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Think, taste, go through the process. And if you're really stuck, go to the finish. Sip that wine, close your eyes. How long are those aromas and flavors lingering? Because that's a big clue to your quality.
Interesting. And actually remind me what SAT stands for.
So the SAT is what we teach at WSET. It's the systematic approach to tasting. Yeah. And it really helps calibrate all our different palates with all the elements of the wine that we assess, from its tannic structure, acidity, etc.
My gosh, I remember the acronym SATAB. SATAB for every tasting. SATAB stands for sugar, acidity, tannin, alcohol, body. And it's all about going through that to make sure that you assess the wine without missing any of the vital structural components, right? SATAB. Yeah. That was my acronym, my goodness. But it is very useful and it does help you assess a wine, doesn't it? So
it really does.
And actually, I think you said enjoy, but actually slow down with tasting was always
slow down and try and enjoy it. And the students get so nervous in the exam. And I remember doing my diploma exams, you're tasting, all these wines, and you'd be so nervous. Actually, just that deep breath, be calm, and just try and enjoy it. You're tasting wine. You know how to do that. And like I say, if you get stuck, go to that finish.
Love that. And also from my side, I always remember saying in my head, don't create a bias immediately. What we always do, we smell it. Like as an example, if I was smelling this first wine, the Mare Antico, which is quite floral, I smell it and I think, oh, okay. I mean, it doesn't have, to be fair, maybe this is a bad example. It doesn't have the liminess. It doesn't have the zinginess of a Riesling. But I mean, if you're floral, okay, maybe I'll go Riesling. Now I might try and convince myself with everything else. And it has the acidity, doesn't it? So I'm like, oh, yeah, it's probably a Riesling. Rather than actually just slowly going through all of the different components.
It's as soon as you try and say that's what it is, then you get stuck, then you go down the rabbit hole. It's just keep your neutral mind, go through the process, enjoy it, write what you're smelling and tasting. It's as simple as that. Don't overthink.
Is that your advice as well for diploma blind tastings? Because of course you may have developed some other habits or tricks for yourself when you were analysing. Have we already covered them all, do you think?
I think we have. That was very much personal to me as well. Definitely.
I mean, here's one for me, from me. Taste.
And taste. 100% outside. And that's the point, is that you're doing so much of that. Outside of those exams, you're tasting, you're smelling, you know what to do. And I think if nerves can get the better of you, overthinking can get the better of you. If you're sat in that exam and you just go with your gut, go with your knowledge, because you do know what you're doing. But then you start overthinking, or maybe it's this grape, so actually I'm going to change my acidity. I don't know. Then it can go very wrong. So
yeah, no, agreed. And everyone, go find out your nearest wine bar that has enematic machines so you can try small pours. There's the Coravan to allow you to extract small pours from your wines if it's worth it for you. There are now, certainly in the UK, companies like Tiny Wine producing wine in really small portion sizes. And also there are wine fairs for consumers that aren't always trade fairs, because of course lots of people listening here are not in the trade, and there are wine fairs throughout the year.
The Little Fine Wine Company as well, I love those half bottles. She's brilliant, Master of Wine. They're great.
That's a very, very good shout. Yes. Okay, as we finish up, I mean, you've tasted a lot of wines. I mean, do you want to give us some wines that you have loved in the recent past? Something that is worth discovering.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something we discovered together. So I'll say it because it's a bit of a love story between us as well. But Old Vine Monastrell, we were lucky enough to go in the Old Vine Corpus to Humila, which has 1,000 hectares of ungrafted old vines. And we tasted the Bodega Saron, which will remain one of my favourite red wines in the world. There are many, but that has a special place in my heart. 100-year-old vines, ungrafted, pre-phylloxera, which is related to quality. Seductive perfume, lavender violet, just could be compared to a Grand Cru Burgundy. And I'd say that really is Old Vine Monastrell is a grape. I think again it's another wine region that needs championing. It's another wine region that has been a workhorse, that's had that high volume production, and you've just got these Old Vines attract some of the best winemaking talent in the world. You've got amazing winemakers, good fruit, quality there, and it needs to be celebrated more. So that would be one of them. Bodega Saron, and their wine is.
I fully agree. And everyone, Jumilla in Spain is the wild west. So this is yet again. I mean, if you want to go to a luxury 5-star hotel, good luck. We definitely. One of the joys of going on press trips is very often you stay in this Castillo de whatever. It's some old castle that's so beautiful. It has a pool. You feel like you're living the dream in the hour or two spare between the next trip, next visit you're doing. No, not in Jumilla. Not in Jumilla. They do.
It definitely wasn't the case. And so I didn't mention, it was the La Calera, the one I was just describing, the 2022 La Calera from Bodega Saron. It was just, for me, amongst so many. I mean, we tasted so many wonderful fine wines there that were just superb.
I agree. Anything else? Any other wines that you need to scream and shout about?
So many. I mean, honestly, again, I do love my old vines for that precision, that the complexities, the perfume, the Rue de Chaux is something I'm drinking a lot of. I was lucky enough to go to the Nuits-St last winter, and I stocked up my car with this Domaine Grechetto, and this is minimal intervention Burgundy, and it was called Rue de Chaux, 80-year-old vines. And 2023 vintage, and ambient yeast, I just can't stop drinking. I'm out, I've got to go back. So that's a little highlight at the moment. Now we're coming out of winter, but that was a bit of a favourite over the last few months.
How much would that set you back? Because when we say Nuits-St,
I bought it at Source, and at Source it was about €65 a bottle, but it was actually really worth it. It was that amazing. It was such a treat.
When you're abroad and you're in the car, you've got to take home a memory.
Yeah, it was very special. That was very special.
Beautiful. Luisa, thank you so much for talking a little bit about your own experience, what you do, and for selling Orvieto DOC to me, and I would only assume everybody listening.
Thank you so much, Janina. You know I love your podcast. It's been a real honour to be here and be a part of it. So thank you.
Oh my God, absolute pleasure. And next time we meet up, let's have a glass of Orvieto.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Done deal. Speak to you soon.
Ciao.
Take care. Well, I hope this episode has given you a complete new perspective on Orvieto and the quiet brilliance of Umbria. If you have any thoughts or questions, I'd genuinely love to hear from you. You'll find my email in the show notes, along with links to the wines we tasted, the producers we discussed, and a little more inspiration for exploring this beautiful part of Italy. Now, next week, we're heading back to my home turf, England, and diving into the world of English wine, where I'm going to be speaking to 4 different producers, exploring everything from world-class sparkling to still, and how about some unusual varieties like Madeleine, Angevine and Muscaris? So we're going to be uncovering some fascinating insights into how the English wine industry is growing, evolving, and really finding its identity on the global stage. So whether you think you know English wine or haven't quite discovered it yet, this is one you won't want to miss. Now, to finish today's episode, I have a wine quote from Renzo Cottarella. He is the chief executive of Antinori and the long-standing driving force behind Castello della Sala in Orvieto. So we mentioned them earlier in the episode. And as soon as I finished recording with Luisa, it was announced that he has been awarded the 2026 Winemaker's Winemaker Award by the Institute of Masters of Wine. And this puts him alongside past incredible winemakers such as Angelo Gaia, Ibn Saidi, Peter Sizak, Peter Gago, Anne-Claude Leflave, Egon Muller, Alvaro Palacios. I could go on, but I won't. And so Renzo said, to have a truly great wine, you must have a wine that drop after drop gives you more and better. If you are curious to explore his Orvieto DOC wine, the San Giovanni is widely available through many UK retailers, around the £23 mark, so you can raise a glass to him and to Orvieto at the same time. If you are enjoying the podcast or getting value from these episodes, it would mean a great deal if you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, a rating on Spotify or wherever you're listening. And if you know a fellow wine lover who would enjoy this, do share it with them. It really helps the podcast continue to grow. Wishing you a week of curiosity, discovery, and at least one glass that surprises you. Until next week, wine friends, cheers to you.